Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show, but I want to give you tasking for the day. I'm looking at a clear solo cup full of water. I always have water next to me when I do the show. And I thought, I want everybody to go out there and get themselves a clear glass and pour it full of water. And I want you to look at that and look how uncomplicated water seems, right? You can see through it. It's clear. You taste it. It doesn't really have a taste, but your body knows when you're drinking. Your body knows that you need it. Well, think about your life and how transparency and clarity, just when you have that, your life just seems to go great. But just like if you filled this solo cup or your clear glass with cottage cheese and you tried to drink that, probably not going to go down the same way. Well, your life is the exact same way. If you have too much going on in your life, if you have too much stuff, or your life doesn't have direction, or you're doing things that you know that you shouldn't be doing, maybe you have an addiction, but you want to get rid of that stuff. You want to be more clear in your life. It's time to get rid of it. And I want you to just think about this day. I'm not saying you need to go out there and do it, but I want you to think about it. And I want you to look at that glass of water and think, man, my life would be much more simple if it was clear and transparent without any filler or calories. Think about that. And let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. The truth has arrived. Now, hopefully, as you're listening to this, you already have a glass of water in front of you, and you're thinking about what I just told you. And yes, I just said that, and then I start the show. It's not like I had that pre-recorded. And I want you to, or I hope that you're actually doing that right now. You're probably listening to the podcast on your cell phone anyway. Have it with you. Go over there to the sink, get yourself a glass of water, start looking at it. Taste that water. It's so clear. It just motivates me looking at that because, I spend the evenings researching all of the news and the current events and what's trending. And it is really, it's just like, it's a crap day for trending news right now. It's like a bunch of made up stuff. I mean, the majority of stuff in the news right now is just simply embellished or made to look bigger than it really is. And all this stress that we have, it is the reason I brought up cottage cheese. I'm a huge cottage cheese guy. I love, it's one of the mainstays of my diet. But I was sitting here looking at this water. I'm like thinking to myself, if I go outside right now, it's really hot and I work out because I'm working out outside and I come in, I need water. But if I filled that solo cup full of cottage cheese and tried to swallow that, it wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't be able to swallow it like that. And it would not quench my thirst. That's for sure. And that's the way the news is. It is not quenching your soul. It is making things more difficult in your life. And not just because it's lies and you're taking that in and you don't know what to do, but these corrupt politicians and these leftists that are running a large part of this country now. Remember, that includes mayors and city council members, school board members, governors, senators, congressmen. Not the president right now, but they are using these lies to stifle your way of life, to kill your business, to keep you from venting. Try taking a trip right now or getting in your car and going driving if you're from New York. Or taking, like saying, you know what, I'm going to go on a staycation, or not a staycation, but I'm going to go on a 3-day weekend vacation. I'm just going to take my family, or just go by yourself, fly somewhere, sit and have a drink, and then fly home. Right now would be the cheapest time you could ever do that. But if you live in New York City, the Gestapo ran by Cuomo, he is the biggest idiot next to de Blasio in politics. I mean, there's like 5 different people that have killed more because of their decisions, have killed more people in this country than COVID alone. I'll tell you about that in a second. But you can't just go and fly somewhere and come back to New York City, because you're going to be questioned. And if you don't submit to it, you're going to be fined $2,000. As though that's going to stop anything. It's not. They have no plan in place to get ahead of the virus. There's no plan. So their goal is just to continue. How long are they going to continue making everybody quarantine? It's obvious. I mean, is it just me? Is it just me, or is it not obvious that, well, let's look at the facts right now, okay? COVID illness numbers are up tremendously. The curve is like sky high now, not just in the United States, but around the world. What does that tell you? Well, for one, it tells you that the quarantine that we did before didn't work. It didn't stop anything. Millions of people around the world, and I guess tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the United States are getting sick that were quarantined. So obviously quarantining only stops it as long as you stay quarantined. And there is no possible way we can stay quarantined forever. There's just no way. So I'm not exactly sure what their thinking is, except from an investigative standpoint, that it's just corruption. And it's just a matter of control. And I have a feeling that mysteriously, at the beginning of the year, if the president does not get reelected, the virus is going to magically disappear. And things are going to magically get better. Or it won't disappear. It'll just become, it'll mutate and become less dangerous. Or it'll become more dangerous and they'll flex their power even more. It could go either way. But either way, if the president doesn't win, it's going to be based on lies, like it is now. Now, I had the virus. Everybody knows that listens to this show. But I kept thinking while I was sitting here sick, I got it out of chance. I just was at the wrong place, or I was at the right place. It was wrong for everybody that was involved, unfortunate. But I got it. I was, you know what? Let me put it to you this way. I was where God wanted me to be, and I got it. The same thing with several other people, got it at the same time. And it's the way it was meant to be. It just is. But I kept thinking while I was sitting here sick and laying there that all the stuff I did, all the quarantining, all the washing my groceries, washing my groceries, leaving my shoes outside, wearing gloves and a mask. This is when it first started. I was hyper vigilant. I did several shows on this with Dr. Lucarini talking about how we, had to really try to keep ourselves from getting this because we didn't know what it was, and we knew it was killing people. And I was on top of it. But in a moment, it didn't matter because I came in contact with it. And while I sat here sick, I started realizing that everything I did didn't really matter because it's a virus and it is all over the place. And unless you are absolutely 100%, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you are able to make money and survive, able to get food and survive, and able to stay in a bubble where there's absolutely no germs coming in or out, you have a pretty good chance of getting this virus. Obviously, for myself, somebody who was quarantined for a month before I got the virus and took great precautions, still got it. You have no idea. It's basically invisible. You have no idea when you're going to get it. It's very similar to terrorism. in that we've been for over 20 years fighting right at 20 years, fighting a faceless enemy. I mean, we know it comes from Islam, but it has no uniform. You can't go around saying that guy he's Muslim, he's a terrorist, because that's not true. They're just the most prolific terrorists, the jihadists that come out of fundamental Islam. But it's very similar. It's a enemy that doesn't wear a uniform. Same thing with the war on drugs. They don't wear uniforms. Not like drug dealers wear uniforms. Well, it's the same thing here. It is a formless, as far as we can see. I'm sure it has a form at a very microscopic level, but we can't see form and function of it. So you just don't know where it's going to come from. How can you avoid that forever? You can't. It doesn't work. And it hasn't worked. And we have to be able to function. I mean, it's not like America is full of people who garden on a daily basis and grow their own food and don't have to worry about a job. Hey, if I don't have a job, I'll just keep planting these seeds that I've been harvesting every year, and my garden will come in and the crop will come in and we'll have food, and we'll also butcher that pig that we've had. That's not happening. So we're stuck in a position now where the virus is growing exponentially, and we already did 3 months of quarantining. It worked while we did it. We lowered the curve, but it didn't go away. And I really, if you see things the way I see, and I'm pretty sure you do, you can't trust what the doctors say. Even my good friend, Dr. Lucarini, I got to have him back on the show and do lessons learned, what we knew then and what we knew now. Because obviously the CDC didn't get it right. The WHO didn't get it right. Fauci didn't get it right on numerous occasions. CNN didn't get it right. Fox News didn't get it right. No one got it right. So what are these expert idiots? They're like professional idiots. What is their best out of all the things they could choose to do? All the tactics and strategic plans that they could come up with and tactical ways to combat this virus. What do they come up with? Let's quarantine again. And the craziest thing about this is, if you quarantine now for a couple of months, in a couple of months it's going to start getting cool, and now you're going to be in flu and coronavirus season, evidently, because coronavirus isn't going to go away. We don't have a cure for it. So now you're going to have people, you think that the hospital rooms are full now. They're going to be overwhelmed when winter comes around. But these people aren't thinking about that. Listen, I'm no medical expert, but I do know that I've had my antibodies tested, and I have antibodies for it right now. Now, again, they're saying now that the antibodies may not last. And that may be the case, but I can't trust what they say. I really can't trust. So I'm still being somewhat careful. I have been a little lackadaisical, I will admit that, but I'm trying to enjoy that while I have it. But we can't trust what they say about that. So these geniuses, and I use that term very loosely, have come up with a plan that we're going to quarantine and lock everything down again. Anybody who started to have a business, they're going to crush it again. And they're going to kill the possibility of millions of people getting antibodies. Now, I'm not saying that, again, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not saying people should rush out and get COVID on purpose, but I will bring up, I think it was in Texas. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but they had these COVID parties, these young morons. I mean, why go get it when you could take the chance that maybe you won't get it? Idiots. But they went and had COVID parties where you could go there and basically get infected. And one guy died, right? But that one guy that they reported in the news also had pre-existing conditions. He had cancer when he was young. And this genius went to a party, and guess what? He got COVID and he died. But we haven't heard any other stories about people dying from these parties. And also, they're saying that the numbers are higher than they've ever been in many places. But you're not hearing about the deaths. You're just hearing about the infection rate. So, I mean, I'm no scientist, but aren't those people going to have antibodies, hopefully into the winter, or at least close to it, and into the flu season, or at least close to it? I mean, am I the only one who's seeing this? That maybe we should be spending the money and time and effort on protecting the people. If they do get it, they're most likely to die. That would be people like the genius that went to the COVID party that had the pre-existing condition, or elderly people. You know, why aren't we putting, I haven't heard nothing about special practices for elderly where the cities or states will go out of their way to help them not only isolate themselves, but somehow come up with a plan so that they don't feel isolated. You know, I haven't heard any of that. Like taking volunteers who have antibodies, having them wash up real good, and then see if, and go even just sit with elderly people, or it's maybe take them for a drive so that they can not feel so isolated, or having people with antibodies come in and build a little plastic wall so the elderly relatives can come in and visit them. They don't do that. They just simply stop at, you can't have visitors in the clinics, or you know, if you're elderly, you shouldn't have people over. They just stop right there. That's it. They don't come up with anything else. They'll spend $150 million or $120 million on a makeshift hospital at Stony Brook University, funded by the professional idiot Cuomo, murderer, and they didn't put one person in there. Instead, they shipped over 6,000 COVID positive patients into the elderly clinics. Doesn't that seem like murder? Doesn't that seem like malpractice at the highest level? I don't know any I know doctors that have been, I personally don't know them, but I've heard of doctors being sued for malpractice and losing their business and their license. This politician made a decision to put COVID positive patients into these elderly clinics and killed over 10,000 people in New York alone. And that's not, he wasn't relieved of his duties at the least. How is that possible? What other career field could you be in where that's the case? I mean, this picture that I have here, good Lord, every single one of these people look like no one I would ever hang out with. Andrew Cuomo in New York, Tom Wolfe in Pennsylvania. He's he's next to the ice cream man in the truck that drives around the neighborhood. He's about as creepy as it gets. Actually, I'm wrong. Phil Murphy is pretty creepy looking. He's got a grin on his face like somebody who just got through killing and enjoyed it. Gavin Newsom, I can't even say it, possibly one of the biggest narcissists to ever hold a political office. He thinks he is the best. Although Cuomo and his nipple rings, he's right up there. And then you got Gretchen Whitmer, who, when I look at her, she has the exact same look as a dog when you whistle and they turn their head sideways because they're like trying to figure out exactly what that is. She looks like she has no clue how she ended up as governor in Michigan. She just literally has that look. And I've seen her in interviews. I just zoomed in and Phil Murphy's picture came up real close to me. That guy looks like he's going to kill you and eat you. He really does. And Tom Wolfe looks like one of those, you know, the guy who comes in and tortures you. It looks like your dad, the dad next door, but will come in with Bermuda shorts and black socks and sandals and will pull teeth out of people to get a confession. That's what Tom Wolfe looks like. Andrew Cuomo just looks like a clown. He is a murderer. These people are all murderers. You know, Gavin Newsom in his picture looks like when you tell a dog, good boy, and they look at you and they're like, I did good. I did good. I want them to tell me I did good again. That's what Gavin Newsom's like. And then, but Gretchen Whitmer, when I look at her, cuckoo. Anyway, those 5 people are responsible for the deaths of over 50,000 Americans. That is no joke. 50,000, over 50,000 elderly died because those professional idiots put COVID positive patients in their elderly clinics in their state. How are they allowed anywhere close to the legal system except for a prison? How is that the case? Oh, man. Now, I could harp on this all day, but the whole point of this is these are the people that are quarantining again when we've already proven globally that quarantining does not work. It's unbelievable. We have gone so far in the wrong direction in this country that it is almost unfathomable that we'll ever be able to come back, because it doesn't seem like you can get these people out of power. Now, somebody sent this to me earlier today, and it's really interesting because I guess I did another show in 2017, not really understanding that or remembering that I did it before, but I want to pull up this video. This is one of my, I would say around the time when I started my Facebook Live page. And this is from 2016, July 13th, 2016. So here you go. Listen to this recording. And again, it just so happens that somebody sent this to me today. They said that it was on one of their messenger, I think from Facebook, and they thought it was that their friend had sent it, but the reality was it was from 2016, and he had been having a conversation with one of his friends back then, and for some reason it just popped up. I don't know exactly why, but listen to what I'm saying back then. Now, I'm much less animated because I still kind of new at that point in radio and very new in this podcasting realm, and this is when I was doing the video show. But listen to what I was saying in 2016. 4 years ago.
All right, I'm back on. So here goes, folks. Let me just do some editorial stuff here, since this is it's interesting. Doing this Facebook Live today, I think it kind of shows you exactly the mood that I'm in. It is as if we are in, I don't know. Everybody that I've talked to police commissioners, I've talked to FBI agents, I've talked to cops, analysts. In the past couple of weeks, I've talked to black people, white people, and everybody knows I don't like saying those colors, but that seems to be the way that we're defining.
I've been apologizing for this.
For some reason
I've been apologizing for, not apologizing, I don't want to use that word. I've been trying to make that clear for as long as I've been on the radio, that bothers me to actually identify somebody by the color of skin, unless it is a physical description of somebody who's done something wrong. But again, I want to point out this is from 2016, what I'm saying right here.
In the year 2016, we're now defining people by their color again, which I thought we got away from that. But it seems like over the past couple of weeks, with all this stuff going on, watching Loretta Lynch on TV today, watching Comey on TV last week, everything is just in chaos. Everything is just, it's so chaotic. What happened in Dallas with the police getting shot, and I have not even said anything about this yet, but
So this was in 2016 when 5 police officers were killed from Dallas. And that happened on July 7th, 2016 by Micah Xavier Johnson, I think is how you say his name. But he ambushed law enforcement officers during a Black Lives Matter march. And now listen to it again, going back to 2016, where you can hear the change in the tone of my voice.
That the day after 5 cops were killed in Dallas, Black Lives Matter and all the rest of these racists, these black racists, went out and protested. And this is after, in the same place, this is after 5 cops gave their lives defending the very march which motivated this individual to go and kill. I mean, think about that. That just shows me from an investigative standpoint that we are dealing with people that are so hell-bent on causing a complete breakdown of society. We're dealing with people that are so bent on creating as much chaos as they can that they have completely let go of any morality or ethics when it comes to honoring people who gave their lives for black people.
Is this not amazing? Listening back on this from 2016, after this shooting had just happened, and literally basically not predicting, but saying that, well, I actually do make a little bit of a prediction here in a minute, but basically pointing out the fact in 2016 that Black Lives Matter is a destructive force. It has nothing to do with making life better for black people. Absolutely not. It is a Marxist communist organization that utilizes that particular issue to further their divisiveness. And that's what I was seeing here. I mean, this stuff had just really started to kind of get some fire under its feet at this point. And I mean, was I not right that their whole thing is about chaos? And in 2020, it's gone completely crazy to the point where, I mean, if I was hosting a show and said what I'm saying right now on Fox News, I would probably get fired. Or if I was the CEO of a company and said that Black Lives Matters, the organization, is a communist organization, I would probably get fired for being as a CEO of whatever company it was. You can't say, literally, from 2016 to now, you can't say how you feel, even if it's based in facts. Let's see what else is on here, because I haven't listened completely through it, but let's play a little bit more.
The rest of the people that were marching that day against cops, it's amazing to me that, and this was the real message that I wanted to get. I got on a tangent there a minute ago talking about the inner city, but this is the real message that I wanted to give to everybody tonight. I came on here about a week ago after Comey, that night when Comey gave his speech, and I told you that was July 5th, I believe.
And that's when he gave his speech about Hillary Clinton. Talked for 14 minutes about how guilty she was, and then for a minute and a half about how she was not guilty enough to get in trouble.
I told you that, in my opinion, we now have a failed government. And I wanted that to be a shot heard around the world for everybody in this country. Everybody, I mean everybody, even the people who are part of Black Lives Matter. I want them to see the reality of what's going on.
Obviously, that did not work. I tried. I gave it my all. I did not have the audience then, nor do I really have the audience now to make these shots heard around the world. Although the difference between this, where I got, a couple thousand views, and the speech that I gave the other day has now gotten 500,000 views on Twitter, the stage has gotten bigger, but it's still not big enough. It's still not big enough. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Because this is the reality. And I said this a week ago. We don't only have a failed government. We have a failed citizenry. We have a citizenry. Like, I come on here and I speak the truth. I put out tweets. I have a pretty high clout online, and a lot of people know who I am because I host on Hannity's show and so on and so forth. But people would rather watch a TV and see flashy things and see all kinds of skirts and good-looking people talking about stuff. They'd rather have people on, 20 people like you have on Megyn Kelly's show, which I thought that Fox.
It's funny because I'm going on a little rant here about these, how they, I don't know, maybe they listen to me, but how they used to have, well, I'll let it play here in a second, but they used to have the shows where they would have the panels on there, and I would just turn the television. If I wasn't on the panel, I wouldn't watch it. It was that bad. I guess somebody listened to me. I don't know, maybe.
Gotten away from that, and I got to tell you, I love everybody there at Fox. Never had a problem with anybody there, but they've got to stop doing those stupid panel shows. Doesn't do anything. I don't know if it's good for ratings, but I don't know one single person that likes it. Nothing good comes out of it. And if Fox is going to be the voice of conservatism, they got to get away from that, because that is too Jerry Springerish.
We know that didn't happen. Fox is not the voice of conservatism. Not even close.
It's infuriating for a lot of people, and they just turn the channel. They turn it off.
It's even more infuriating now. 2016, Jonathan.
We are a failed people.
Yes.
And I said 2 weeks ago that if the people don't start responding to these things, then there's going to be a major problem. It may happen overnight, or it may take 30 years, like Brigitte Gabriel was telling me about in Lebanon, where it went from a Christian country to an Islamic country in 30 years. Gone.
Or it could take 4 years, which it pretty much did. 2020, I mean, even the... I almost said the all-powerful Trump, who has skin that is as thick as you could. I mean, I don't know anybody else that could ever have skin as thick as President Trump. Nobody that's human. That guy puts up with more stuff on a daily basis. You can't trust anybody around him. They make up lies about him. But that's to the side. The country and where it's at now, I mean, like I said on Sunday, we're on the verge of a civil war in this country, and it's so bad that you literally don't have freedom of speech anymore when it comes to certain issues. And most of the big cities where you would, especially now, need to be armed to protect yourself, you can't even have a gun legally. And you have these murderous governors and mayors going around destroying the cities, getting people killed through their incompetent, and sometimes I wouldn't say it's even incompetent. It's they made the decisions full well knowing what would happen. Good gosh, this is like remarkable. Listen to this. 2016, Jonathan, you are right on track, my friend. Keep talking.
We are moving towards a socialist country, and one of the questions that I got was from somebody asking about.
You see, folks, this is what you get. And listen, I'm tooting my own horn here because I'm actually kind of sitting back and listening to this at the same time. I have not listened to this far into this video since it was aired in 2016. So I know what I felt back then, but I forgot that I said it on here. Of course, I've said this multiple times, but listening to everything I'm explaining here in 2016, I'm saying that this is coming. That the Black Lives Matter movement is chaotic and is going to cause problems. That socialism is a problem and it's on the rise. Wow.
What Putin said, that if Clinton gets elected, it's going to be World War III. I would go further than what Putin has gone. And I said this last year. We are already in World War III.
Well, I'm not going to play the whole thing. You can go watch it if you go on, I think it's on YouTube, and you just scroll down, keep scrolling down until you find, I don't know what episode that was, but it was from 2016. You'll be able to find it. July 13th, 2016. I think it was just a Facebook Live. I don't know. I'll see if it's on there. But regardless, I mean, you get to hear the majority of it right there. It's about an hour long. But I'm talking about what is actually happening today. Everything that I'm referring to there is already, it's taking place today. And it's pretty fascinating to be able to go back and listen to this. I'm sure everybody out there wishes they could go back and say, you know what, I was thinking that then. I saw that back then. I wish I would have recorded it. Well, that's one good thing about doing these shows. You can go back and look at this stuff and actually see when it happened or hear when it happened. I saw it coming. Many of you probably did as well, but a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people in this country, did not see it coming. They just absolutely did not have any inkling of understanding of what socialism is going to bring to this country and the threat that groups like, these liberation theology groups like Black Lives Matter and Catholic theology, when there's many fake Catholic groups out there. I'm not saying all Catholic groups are bad, but there are fake Catholic groups out there that practice liberation theology. Look that up. You have to look that up after this show. I keep saying it over and over again, liberation theology. The other thing that's really interesting is, I think, along with social media, but narcissism has just, it was bad then, but it's like in your face all over the place now. And it seems like so many of the people in power now are just full-blown narcissists to an extreme that is just, it's dangerous. It really is. Listen, I'm going to take a break real quick, and then I'm going to come back, and I want to tell you about how I prepared for my speech the other day and what I was thinking about when I was prepping for it. I said I would do that yesterday. I want to do that today, and then let you go off and enjoy your glass of water on a Tuesday, but we'll be right back. I know I talk a lot about my books on this show, but I just want to make sure that if you have not checked out Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and it's 2 workbooks that go with it, that you at least go check it out. You can go on and listen to the first, 2 minutes of it on Amazon if you just click on listen here, and you can at least hear what I'm saying. The important thing that you have to take away from this is that this book, like no other, is going to show you how attackers look at you and teach you how to look at yourself the same way, how to divide your life into sectors, how to target each sector with that knowledge and understanding, those tactics, techniques, and procedures. And then the workbooks allow you to do your own threat assessment on every aspect of your life, and then take that information and put it into the defense assessment workbook. Now, along with that, I designed, along with Danielle Kreiner, a children's book called The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And it's a book of pictures that you can give your child, and in the pictures are embedded security, safety, awareness, and communication lessons. And the parent, you can go to teamlittlebigs.com and download the lesson plans. So what you literally have is a way to teach your child non-verbally. They can sit there and look at the books, and you can point to those pictures and really start them off at a very, very young age, helping them to understand what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and how to communicate these things. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival was written for, I would say, people 10 years and up. Definitely for an adult to understand the world that they live in. And The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, was written with those children in mind so we can start them out young to understand what they need to do to stay safe and how to communicate these things. Trust me, folks, I did this for you, and I hope that you'll go check them out, because this is how you secure your homeland. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs and Sheep No More. Go get them. And let's get back to the show. I don't know if I say this enough, but, the music at the beginning and end of the show, that is by my good friend Melissa Bernos. You can find her on iTunes Burnos, and that song's called Octane. And all the music that you hear interspersed and the big booms and all this stuff, this is by a good friend of mine, Brian Gosher, who has been by my side since I started my show years ago, 2015. Brian followed me on social media, and he reached out because I was coming up with this program, and he said he wanted to help me out with music. Unbelievable. All this music that you hear, he composed all of this stuff. So I can't thank them enough, Brian, for all the hard work that he's done, and Melissa Burnos for, lending me the power of her voice to set the mood for this show. That we're back in town, and I just love that song. And there's a bunch of her music that you can download on iTunes. Burnos, she's pretty amazing. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Melissa, very much. Now, I want to talk just real quick about, how I came up with the speech that I was going to give the other day, because it was for Blue Lives Matter. And I was really hoping that, I didn't have a lot of time. I knew that I wouldn't have much time because it was outside, it's very hot. So I wanted to hit some very high notes. And as I started thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I quickly realized that in the news every single day are all the reasons why police should be funded and why it's an honorable job and why honorable people should still be called to do it. Now, it's dangerous right now. I'm not going to lie. It's always been dangerous. But it's dangerous in the fact that we have more police officers being charged with murder right now than ever before for not murdering somebody. I mean, there's a big difference between killing someone in the line of duty that was posing an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. But, in this day and age, because these leftists are running things in many places, like Atlanta, for instance, where you're a gentleman to a guy for 40 minutes, and then he flips out and starts fighting with you, steals your taser, and then tries to shoot you with it. Well, you've got every reason in the world, justifiably, to shoot that guy. But in Atlanta, you're going to get charged with murder. That's the way that works. So I started thinking about that. And I wanted to ask, why are we here? Why are we in support of Blue Lives Matter? Well, one of the reasons that we're there to support the blue and support law enforcement officers is because the left is in control. I wanted to save that to the end because that's really the reason why this stuff is getting pushed out. But we were there to support the blue, and I found it was very interesting as I started going back through the years to look at how many law enforcement officers are killed each year in the line of duty. It's very interesting because between 140 and 180, 185 law enforcement officers are killed every year. It's that average number between 140 and 185, except for September 11th, where there were 243 officers killed, 72 in the line of duty on September 11th in one day. Now, it never happens where there's 15 a day, 15 a month. But if you were to put those out over a 12-month period, it's about 15 a month. Now that, again, this is the way statistics lie because there's, you're not always hearing about 15 officers died this month, 15 officers died that month. It's, you may have 5 dying this month and 20 dying the next month all over the country. But overall, 15 a month. And already we are on track to go well over 17 a day. Or let's just say 17 a month. I'm sorry, I keep saying a day. 17 a month. So we're going to exceed 180 police officers killed in the line of duty this year. I think the biggest difference is that of those 140 to 180 police officers are killed, the number of those officers being killed by a felon that was trying to kill them, in other words, like were they murdered, is maybe half, maybe a little bit more than half. Car crashes are the number one way that police officers die, whether in a pursuit or just hit by somebody when they're driving down the road. because that's one of the most dangerous things you can do. I don't know if you realize that. Getting in your car is more dangerous than, well, just about anything else that you can do. Cars are extremely dangerous, much more dangerous than flying, that's for sure. But that is one of the main ways that they die. But overall, this is the amount of officers that are killed every year. And this year we're on track, I would say, if things keep going the way they are, that murder is going to be the number one way that law enforcement died in 2020, because they're just being murdered left and right. Now I wanted to look at and call out what police officers do on a regular basis. And I don't think there's anything better than showing what they do with children. You know, one of the most incredible videos I've ever seen was where this young girl had drowned, and a police officer ran. You could see him running, and he takes the child away from the mom, and he starts giving her mouth to mouth and CPR, and he's trying to get some air into her, and he's pumping her. He has her on her side, and he's blowing air, and she throws up. I know this sounds gross, but as crazy as it is, it brought me to tears. She threw up basically in his mouth. She's a little bitty girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. This cop didn't even, it's still hard for me to talk about this. He didn't even blink an eye. He just spit that out and just kept going until he revived her. It was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. He didn't even flinch. He was so focused on saving that child's life. Boom. He just kept going. It just tears me up when I think about this, because that is the dedication that these officers have. Now, I can type in child rescued by police in 2020. That's what I typed in. And just one after another. 11-year-old girl rescued as she was abducted. Rescued after she was abducted, getting off her school bus. Police officer rescues child caught in flash flood. Police officer rescues 4-year-old child caught on camera. Sacramento police officer saves baby. It just goes on and on and on. This in and of itself, to me, is enough to show that you cannot defund police. Now, you can go and you can say, well, they did this wrong, or they did that wrong, or they treated me like a jerk. Hey, listen, I'm the first one that will tell you that law enforcement needs to be reevaluated in how they train and the standards that they have, and and they need to be taught to be pillars of the community, not the enforcers in the community. I will admit, I will say that right now. That's one of my biggest criticisms of law enforcement. When you leave law enforcement, trust me, you will see it. You will see it, and you will sit back and say, they deserved it. Those people deserved it. But you'll see a lot of times you'll hear people tell stories, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't cool. That guy was being a jerk. Or they used their power. I think I told this story. I was in Little Rock. I think it was a Pulaski County Sheriff's deputy. I was with my mom and my sisters. We were young. We were probably in junior high or high school. And we went to a concert at the amphitheater there in Little Rock. And we got there early. I don't even remember who it was. We put a blanket down. My mom had all of us there. And we were just sitting there waiting for the concert to start. And this sheriff's deputy came up, flashes his badge, and tells us that we have to move because he's on official business. And my mom, she respected law enforcement. She wasn't going to argue with him. She was like, well, we can, move over. He goes, no, you all have to get out of the way. No care. No, he's just a freaking dick. And he made us move. And then we sat there and watched him pull his wife or girlfriend over. And then, of course, then you get the evil eye on him and you watch him for the rest. It ruined the whole thing, right? A mom and her kids. And so we had bumped all the way back in the back at this amphitheater, and we watched, and they were up there just having a good old time, drinking, clapping, watching the music. That's a dick move. Okay. And that guy is not somebody who should have a badge. Now, yeah, granted, we didn't get killed because the guy was leaning on our chest like an idiot that killed George Floyd. That's murder. But still, it's a sign of, and this stuff has always been around. It's always been around. When you have a position or positions of authority open, there will be a certain number of people that will show up to get the job that are just, they're just the wrong people for the job. And, better training by the people who recruit, better standards, stop hiring people because of they're a buddy of a buddy or a friend or somebody. Start hiring people because they're qualified. Stop hiring people because of the color of their skin or because their gender or whatever. And start hiring people who are effective that can do the job properly, and then teach them how to be pillars of the community. Now, all the guys that I worked with in the FBI and when I was a cop on the street for the period of time that I was, and all the law enforcement that I've interacted with were salt of the earth, great guys. I never worked with anybody who was like that, with the exception, I would say, of FBI SWAT people. I don't know what they do, but it's like they pull out your soul and insert dickhead, and that's who the people are when they go on FBI SWAT. Just they turn into idiots. I don't know what it is, and I've watched them work. They're not good. It's not good at all. And that was kind of universal around the FBI all over the country. I heard horror stories about the different things they did. Now, there were some good guys in there, tactically sound, but I'd have to say from the perspective of personality, zero. And when they got in there, it's like they just sucked the personality right out of them. Now, in all clarity and transparency, I tried out for SWAT. I don't know. I was like 4 years in, I think. And out of, I think there were 40 people that were trying out that year, I came in 8th. But Jim Gagliano that you'll see on CNN, the guy that used to have a picture up in his office making it sound like he went to SEAL training, which he did not. He was a Ranger and a graduate of West Point. But he even wrote an article about what's tougher, Ranger school or SEAL training. Well, he never went through SEAL training. I did go through Ranger schools, and I went through SEAL training. So I do know he does not. So, but anyway, didn't stop him from writing that. But anyway, he calls me up to his office, and he said he was the reason why I went to New York to begin with, because he came up to me in the academy and said, I want you in New York. I was like, okay, I'm going to New York, He said, we need guys like you on SWAT up there. Come up there. We'll get you on SWAT. I go out for SWAT. And what does he do? He calls me up there and says, listen, we have this matrix, this incredible matrix that we use. And you, out of 40 guys, you came in 8th, but we're only taking 7. So he then proceeds to tell me that he thinks that the only reason I'm there is to check a box. This is coming from one of the most narcissistic people I've ever met. In fact, I pretty much use the Gagliano scale when I'm trying to determine how narcissistic someone is. And so I never went out again. And it's the one thing I ever, in my life, ever wanted and just said, nah, it's not worth it. Because for me, I didn't want to be on a team with people that I despise. I didn't think it was worth it. I don't want to pause. Not that I would ever pause when I'm going through a door with people, but, you have to train with those people. And I don't like working in a tactical environment with people that I'm not sure if they're going to come behind me when we go through a door and do what's correct tactically. And I don't want to work in an environment with people who I think are absolute jerks. I mean, when you work, listen, in the SEAL teams, you dealt with egos. But one thing I can truly say is that I trusted every single man that was there, that when it came time to work, no matter how we felt about each other, we'd all paid the price in buds. I could trust them to do what needed to be done to the best of their ability, better than any other human being on earth, with the exception of me. But I didn't feel like that in the FBI, so I never went out again for it. So that's my clarity statement for the show. But anyway, way off track. So getting back to the good things about law enforcement and about these police officers, and the reason I was there talking about this was that those people are actually few and far between. And when you look at the majority of the things that police officers do on a daily basis, I mean, think about this, okay? Statistically, 1/3 of all murders go unsolved. I said this in my speech the other day. That means that 2/3 of all murders get solved in the United States by police. That means that the victims' families can have closure. 2/3 of all homicides are solved. Now, this one is even a more incredible number. And I didn't get to really talk about these things when I was giving the speech. That's why I'm talking about them now. Over 1 million, about 1,200,000 violent crimes in 2018. Actually, it's 1,206,836. Now, I don't know how they come up with those numbers, but it did include, when I looked at the FBI's matrix, it said, it talks about rape and murder and assault and several other things that were on there. Violent crimes, right? These are violent crimes where somebody could be injured or killed. 1,200,000 of those in 2018. That is only violent crimes. That doesn't include car stops, people talking to the cops and asking a question, domestic disputes, whatever that police are going to be involved with on a daily basis. It's millions and millions and millions. And I'm not saying like that's 4 millions, right? We're talking more along the lines of like 8 million interactions a day that law enforcement has with the public. When you take all the law enforcement officers in the country, which it's around 1 million, give or take, their interactions equal up into the millions a day. And when you think about that and the things that they're involved with, if you take them away, those children that were rescued would not be rescued. 9/11 and the officers that ran in there, some people did get saved that day. We always think about 9/11 as being a day when all these people died and, 72 police officers and 343 firefighters were killed. But a lot of people were actually saved that day. That's why we don't recognize that. And they wouldn't have been saved if these people hadn't been rushing into those buildings. These violent crimes that occur, a lot of the times when the police officers show up, they stop the crime or they stop the perpetrator or they keep that person from doing other violent crimes. That would stop if we got rid of police. All the while, these officers are doing this being underpaid. They don't make the same. Who's this new guy? This guy, I don't keep up with the NFL at all, but this quarterback just got the highest sports contract in history. It was like $423 million or something like that. Over $400 million. almost $500 million to throw a football. These individuals, in some cases, don't even make $50,000 a year. My last year in the FBI, I was making $110,000 before taxes, $110,000 before taxes. That include, the law enforcement pay that we get at, and don't even get me started on that. I'll talk about that someday. But cost of living. But I was risking my life and working under Mueller. I mean, how bad could it get? But all the while, these men and women are underpaid. They're ill-equipped. They're really undertrained. There's no hit on the people. And listen, I know all the officers out there saying, we rush in, we do this job. Yeah, but listen, I've been a part of the top of the mountain, okay? You all are not trained to that level. In fact, you're not even close. I've been through 1, 2 police academies, Air Marshal Academy, which is really about the same as the Border Patrol Academy, really, in Artesia, New Mexico. I went through the FBI Academy. I did 80 hours of on-the-job training when I was a street cop at Camp Robinson, Arkansas. I went into the Navy before I actually got to go to the academy. But I've been through these trainings, and I've also been through SEAL training. And I'm here to tell you, you can't even imagine the difference in the way that we look at a problem and figure that problem out as a SEAL versus an FBI agent or a street cop or an air marshal. It's night and day. And I quite frankly can't understand. And I was like this the whole time I was in there. I couldn't figure out why. Why aren't we training these people? You know, in some cases you have 16 or 18 or 24 weeks to train them. You could train them to a level that is much more elite with much better tactics and tactics that evolve with the criminals and the times, but they don't. It's like very basic, and I'm not talking about making warriors out of people. See, this is where I remember another time, another FBI story. There was openings to go to Iraq, and you had to have, I think it was 3 years in. I was only 2 years in. So I called the guy who was in charge of it, and I said, I'd like to go over there. And he said, unless you're on SWAT, we can't take you for this position. I said, well, I was a SEAL. And he said, yeah, well, you guys are trained to kill. We can't just have people going and just killing everybody in a room. You have to be able to think your way through it, and you need to have more time as investigator. Stupidest thing I ever heard, because obviously this guy had no clue about the level of training that we get in the SEAL teams and what it actually produces. It doesn't just produce a warrior. It produces an individual who can analyze situations real time and make sound decisions. Not just sound decisions based on what they've been taught, but actually look at something and say, well, I haven't been taught this before, and I'm looking at this situation and I'm breaking it down and understanding exactly what should be done in order to affect the greatest outcome or to have mission success. I mean, that's the level of thinking that you get out of somebody who's been through SEAL training and actually became a SEAL. So I don't understand why they don't train these individuals to this level. There's plenty of time to do it. They just have not ever evolved with this stuff. So these law enforcement officers that are dealing with these violent crimes, saving children, running into burning buildings, going into domestic disputes where literally people want to kill themselves, and they're really not trained to the level that they should be in order to do that. And a lot of the stuff these police officers get is because they've been on the job for so long that the street has taught them the best way to do it. Well, that best way doesn't always work out. And that's how you end up having situations where, their anger takes over because of the situations that are put in and day out of disrespect and just animalistic behavior by the criminals that are out there on the street now. The reality is politics rule all the executive levels in law enforcement. Sheriffs, chiefs of police, most of them, I've met some great ones going around this country, but many of them are not great, and they are just pure politicians that should not be in the position that they're in. They got promoted just like in the FBI. They got pulled up. They didn't earn their way up. They got pulled up by like-minded people. And all of the stuff, all of this, how much they get paid, what equipment they get, what the training is all determined by the politicians and attorneys, which are the last people that should be determining this. I hope that the SEAL teams never go to that level, that they'll still always, even though they got leftists all over the place in at the higher levels of the SEAL teams and the DOD in general, I hope that they stick to this fundamental system of creating the thinking warrior. I hope. I know the Army's probably laughing that I'm calling them the thinking warrior, but it's true. Special forces in general are the thinking warriors. Now, again, the last thing is with this is that they do all of this stuff with very little trust or support. Reminds me, I knew an incredible woman that was a critical care doctor in Arkansas. I used to be her and her husband's physical fitness trainers. And she used to tell me that, she's this renowned physician, but yet her parents would never take medical advice from her. In fact, they wouldn't only not take it, they would tell her to, they have their own doctor where they get their information from, kind of put her down a little bit, and that's very similar in that there's no respect from the public. They don't even consider what these men and women do on a daily basis. They don't even consider it. but yet they still do their job. They still do it. So why, if we know that police are needed so badly, why are people even saying they want to defund it, and why are politicians even considering it? Well, it's basically the same thing that's going on with COVID right now. You know, the cancer of comfort has infected the American people, and they don't realize that what they feel is probably right in a lot of the ways. Like, they feel that the way that these politicians are handling COVID is probably not right. They feel like the doctors aren't quite telling them the truth, because they feel like the doctors may not know what they're saying. I mean, all that's pretty much true. Well, it's the same thing in this case. You know, people sit here and say, why would we want to defund the police? I mean, you know, they're the ones who are going to take care of us, save us. So they're the ones we're going to call when the bad guys strike. And then you hear some knucklehead city council person, you know, from Minneapolis, saying that having a police officer respond to your crisis is white privilege. I don't know what that idiot was thinking when she said that, not thinking. But the cancer of comfort, you know, people hear that stuff and they say, well, that's not right. I mean, but you're so comfortable that you don't raise a ruckus about it. You don't unify. You know, the result of corruption and compromise in law enforcement, leadership, and politics is rampant. They would rather compromise with what the lawyers and the politicians think should happen, instead of standing up to them saying, no, this is not right. And then when something happens because they forced law enforcement to do that, they don't stand up and say, see, these people died because of you. And the family tree of the left, you know, and that's what I pointed out at the end of that speech. You know, this is a subversive war. That's what I was talking about at the very beginning of the show. It's organized propaganda, indoctrination, and outright lies. And the soil, I want you to think about this, a family tree with these people on there, right? The activists, the politicians, the media people, the big money donors, all these people are part of this family tree of the left. And the active ingredient of that soil is the ism. Communism, Marxism, socialism, fascism, liberalism, progressivism, globalism. It's all the same. Even narcissism goes right in there. And this tree is rooted in the recruitment and blind following of a collective groupthink, as opposed to a collection of free thinkers, which I always talk about. You know, those roots are planted through indoctrination of young and old alike. I mean, it used to be the Department of Education and these teachers' unions were the backbone, and still are the backbone of indoctrination. But it's very interesting how many adults, some veterans even, have been indoctrinated because of media. Media has become like the indoctrination tool of adults. And also the entertainment, you know, system, judicial, legislative, and at times executive branch of government in their lies. All for indoctrinating the young and old. As Kellyanne Conway's daughter has clearly shown that she's indoctrinated to the point where she's like a little crazy robot going around. The spawn of that ideology and that collective is the activists, the donors, the politicians, and the media that grow on the tree. But remember, the soil of we the people are where the evil spawn of the ism begins. And we the people are how it's sustained, unwittingly watering and cultivating the growth of these isms, which is all one ism, really. But we the people will be what destroy this if we decide that this is the hill that we will choose to die upon. I want everybody to listen real close, because everybody's choosing these hills to die upon these days, these issues that they most likely don't know anything about, have done no research. They're just going off of pure emotion based on what they hear in the media or on social media. But while you're getting all emotional and not looking for the facts. I don't care if you consider yourself liberal or conservative or what your stance is. You're not collecting facts. And while that's occurring, leftists are taking over this country. Now, I don't know what you feel about the Constitution, but you better start educating yourself on it, and you better start realizing exactly what's happening, because before you know it, the rights that are in the Constitution will be gone, and your life will never be the same. This is the most dangerous point we've ever had in over 244 years of this great nation. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.